to 78621 Live. I'm Stacey Ford Osborne, the Acting Public Information Officer for the City of Elgin. I usually co-host this podcast along with our wonderful mayor, Teresa McShann. But today I'm coming to you solo to give you a recap of the council meeting, the special called council meeting on December 16th, 2025. So what I'm going to do is go through the agenda, just give you the highlights, let you know what happened, give you a little recap of what the meeting was all about. And if you want to see the entire thing, we'll put it in the notes so you can watch it at your leisure. So let's get into it. And just so you know, I don't go through the public comments. I start with the announcements and then the presentations in the city manager's report for this particular recap, just so I can talk about things that were actually on the agenda. So we started off with announcements. Chief Noble came and he gave a little bit of an update on some of the activities that the police department has been doing lately. They include Shop with the Cop, Operation Turkey, and the first annual Badges and Bags. It was a first responder food drive. All of those events went really well. And then Heather Fowler, who's our library services manager, came up and gave us a little report on some of the events happening in Elgin coming up. They include the Parks and Recreation Polar Bear Plunge on Saturday, January 3rd, Family Movie Night at the library on December 19th, and Stocking Stuffer Saturday on December 20th in downtown Elgin. Then we had a couple of presentations. The first one was doing the oath of office for our brand new city manager, Robert Eads. He sat up and gave a little oath and promised to uphold the Constitution of the United States, the state of Texas, and the charter of the city of Elgin. And he is now officially, he was officially 2 weeks ago, the city manager for the city, but now he's officially official with photos and everything. So we're really happy to welcome Mr. Eads to the city and know that he'll do a great job as our city manager. Our second item under presentations was a board update by the BCPHD. That's the Bastrop County Public Health District. That advisory board update was given by Elgin Representative Roger Adams, and he gave us an update on what's happening with the BCPHD. And encouraged first of all, he thanked our city council for being such an active member of the district and also encouraged them to continue supporting and being an active part of the district in the future. The next section of the agenda was the city manager's report. This is the section where the city manager gives an update on things that he's been working on, sometimes with staff. Sometimes it's things that City Council asked him to work on and bring back to him. There were only 2 items on last night's report. The first one was direction to staff to set the second monthly meetings for City Council in 2026. That was an action item, and the City Council voted unanimously to go ahead and accept that. The second one was the adoption of a special events permitting process, and the city manager asked City Council how they felt about the permitting process that we had presented to them in a past meeting. And they still had a few questions and a few things that they wanted us to work on, us staff, to work on. They included bringing back a total of the special events costs over the past year and kind of helping them understand what the costs were that for all of these special events that happen throughout the year. So Mr. Eads said that we would work on that and bring it back at a later date. There's no hurry to adopt this as an official policy. It's a work in progress, and we want to make sure that council is happy with it. So that was the city manager's report. And then we had the consent agenda, which also included just 2 items. We had the City Council regular meeting minutes, and then a resolution of the City of Elgin adopting a written investment policy and investment strategy regarding the investment of city funds, designating the city's investment officers to be effective December 16th. Both of those items, none of those items were pulled, and they were both passed unanimously as a consent agenda item by the City Council. The first item on the new business section was an EDC agreement. That's an Economic Development Corporation agreement between the Elgin EDC and a developer who's planning to build in the city. The development is called Elgin Commons, and it was brought forth by Kaylee Fry, who's our Economic Development Director, and she answered a few questions from Council, and then Council had a motion and a vote to accept the agreement as written, and it passed unanimously. The second item was a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a work authorization. This is the third authorization we're doing with this company. It's a company called Gradient Leadership Solutions, and they have been helping us with our finances and helping us to get everything straightened out with our finances. So this is a continuation of their contract that was presented by Pam Sanders, who's our HR director, and it was passed. There was a motion to accept it, and it passed unanimously. The third item was an acceptance of, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with a company called Logic. And this is, let me see if I can get the exact name for you, Logic Compensation Group. And this is an organization that's going to be doing our compensation study coming up in this next year. So this is just authorizing, this is an official authorization by the city manager to enter into this contract. All of the people that we looked at, all of the firms that we looked at were presented at an earlier meeting. Council agreed that this was the one, so this is just where we officially say, yes, we're going to authorize this contract and move forward with this organization. So that was also motioned and approved unanimously. The fourth item was an ordinance of the City of Elgin, Texas, adopting the 10 Texas traits of good government as guiding principles for City Council, contracted employees, committees and advisory councils and officials, and regular employees. What this was a presentation by our City Manager Robert Eads, and he presented this as sort of a starting point for developing our own guidelines for ethics, for just good practices by the City of Elgin. And this is something that has been written by an attorney, and many cities have begun with this. Some cities have adopted it just as it was written. Many used it as a starting point to create their own code of ethics or their own code of conduct. And he just wanted to present it to the City Council for consideration so that they could look at it, read it, see what they thought about it, and then in the future we can talk about it a little bit more. So that was presented and received by the City Council unanimously. The next item was an annexation. This was an annexation of a 133.6470 acre tract and a 40.6363 acre tract of land, for a total of 174.01 acres. This is a territory that we are planning to annex for a planned development district. That's called a PDD. That was presented by our city engineer, Bo Perry, and there were a few questions, and then those questions were answered. There was a vote to accept the annexation and move forward with it, and it was approved unanimously. When we annex property in the City of Elgin, we have to assign that property to a specific ward. So that was the next item on the agenda, item 5. What we did is that's item 6. This was an ordinance that assigned that newly annexed property that they had just annexed to City Council Ward Area Number 2. And that was because that's where it happens to reside, right there in Ward Number 2. So we went ahead and approved that. That was approved unanimously and presented by Mr. Perry as well. The next item was for another development in the City of Elgin called Harvest Ridge. And so this was a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the third amendment to the development and consent agreement with a group called Clayton Properties Group Incorporated. This is a Tennessee corporation that's doing business in Texas, and they are wanting to put a development in place that's called Elgin Commons. So there was some back and forth between all of the council members on that, what this development would entail, whether or not it was the right thing for the city, whether or not the council understood exactly what was happening there. The developer, both Mr. Perry and the developer, got up and answered those questions and had that discussion with council. At the end of it, there was a motion to accept the agreement, or the amendment to the agreement. Again, this is the third amendment to an agreement that's already in place, to accept that amendment and move forward. It passed almost unanimously. Councilmember Gibson voted no. Everybody else voted yes. And then the final item on new business before we went into an executive session was a resolution of the City of Elgin authorizing the mayor to execute a funding agreement between the City of Elgin and the Elgin Chamber of Commerce. And this is involving the expenditure of our hotel motel taxes. So the hotel motel taxes are a portion of your tax that's collected when you buy anything in the City of Elgin. A portion of, actually, excuse me, it's whenever you stay in a hotel in the City of Elgin. So when you stay in a hotel in pretty much any city in the United States and in Texas, you pay a percentage of your bill as a tax. And that tax goes into a special pot of money. It's called the Hotel Motel Tax Fund. And a Hotel Motel Tax Fund is a special fund that can only be used to promote the city and to encourage people to come back to the city and stay in hotels again. So it's supposed to be a self-generating fund. And the idea behind it is that when people stay in a hotel, they're also going to go out to dinner, they're also going to shop in the local shops, and they're also going to contribute in other ways to the local economy. So it's a fund that the state of Texas set up many, many, many years ago that many cities have in place, and it's collected at the hotel and then submitted to the city. So the Chamber of Commerce is funded in part with funds from the Hotel Motel Tax Fund. Now, because that tax fund has separate rules and regulations associated with it, we have to make sure that when we're spending those funds, that they're going to an entity or a group or a cause or an activity that will be promoting the City of Elgin and drawing visitors back to the city, to hopefully to stay in a hotel and spend their money on our local merchants. So that was what that discussion was about. And so we had representatives from the Chamber of Commerce talking about making their case for why their activities and the things that they were planning to do in the next couple of years would justify the spending of those funds. And so there was a lot of back and forth between the chamber representatives and the council members. There were some council members that expressed concern about whether or not those activities that the chamber had planned would actually draw visitors back. There was some concern about a visitor center that the Chamber of Commerce currently runs and whether or not that visitor center is truly serving visitors for the City of Elgin. And there were some questions about whether or not the activities that the City of Elgin Chamber of Commerce is planning to do will will meet the stated goal of attracting more people to downtown. So after a great deal of discussion, there was a vote, and the vote was actually not what was on the agenda. The vote was to extend their contract, or to put a contract in place for 1 year, and during that year give the Chamber of Commerce, who is under new leadership, the opportunity to prove themselves and to show that they are willing and able to conduct activities that will actually draw visitors back to downtown. So council, there was a motion presented to vote on that, and council voted on it, but we did have a few council members. I believe there were 3 council members. You'll have to go back and watch and tell me if I got it wrong. But I believe that Councilmember Love, Councilmember St. Pierre, and Councilmember Kasnovsky all voted no. The rest of council voted for that agreement, and it passed. So that was the last item of new business before council retired into executive session. As you probably know, City Council can adjourn the public meeting at any time during the meeting if they're going to be discussing certain things that need to be done behind closed doors. In this case, one of them was a consultation with the attorney regarding an economic development issue with Lund Farms. The second was an executive session in consulting with the city attorney regarding a potential claim and related legal issues. So council excused themselves they adjourned the meeting to go into executive session. They were in executive session for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And then when they came out, they reconvened and we continued with our new business section 2. Section 2 only had 3 items, and those were action items related to what council had discussed in their closed sessions. The first one was a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the first agreement to the amended and restated development consent agreement with Lund Farm Investment, LLC. They went ahead and voted. There was a motion to approve as written, and that was approved unanimously. The second one was the annexation of the PDD that we discussed earlier in the meeting, earlier in the evening, and that item was presented and approved unanimously as well. And then the next one was assigning that newly annexed property to a ward, just like we did earlier in the evening. This was assigning that annexed property to City Council Ward Area number 3. That was, there was a motion to approve that. It was approved unanimously. And council adjourned a little bit after 10 o'clock, if I recall correctly. 10:30. Thank you. Sonia's telling me it adjourned at 10:30 in the evening. So that was a long council meeting, but they got a lot of good business done, and that was the final council meeting of the year. In these council meetings, that's usually a time for council to kind of wrap up business of the year before we start a new year. The next meeting will be on January 6th, and we will be posting the agenda for that meeting a week before, 5 business days before the meeting. So you look for that on the city's webpage. You can also sign up for city alerts, so you can get an alert when a new agenda is posted so that you can read it. So be sure to do that. We'll put a link in the notes below. And if you're listening on, if you're listening to our podcast, you can find that in the notes for the show as well. So thank you so much for joining us for 78621 Live for this council recap for December 16th. We'll be back next time to give you a recap of January 6th. Take care.